I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. Yeah. Go ahead.
Councilwoman Chapman?
Here.
Councilman Cookingham?
Here.
Councilman Deegan?
Yep.
Councilman Reifenberg?
Here.
Supervisor Albrecht?
Here.
Okay, all present.
Yeah, I'm just going to make a motion to amend the agenda, and I'll discuss it if I get a second, but I'd like to amend the agenda to add a 13C under old discussion, which is just a continued discussion of the short-term rental law.
Second.
And just as a discussion for it, I know people get upset adding stuff like this, and I understand it, but there was discussion about New York State, and we got the green light to move ahead, and I kind of made a bunch of edits and stuff, and we're going to still continue the public hearing. So I just think the board should get all on the same page of what we want to put out so we can keep moving forward. So I think we should probably do that tonight so we can do that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, for this evening, there are no public hearings. I would like a motion to accept the minutes from the regular town board meeting of 1/22/25 and the workshop meeting of 2/3/25.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All correspondence, official correspondence, is on file in the town clerk's office. So before we get on to our presentation, Deidre Howson, our county legislator, wasn't able to make it tonight due to another meeting. So I'd like to give you a rundown of some things she asked me to go over. The county has announced Go-Go Veterans. It's rides available for veterans, 2 free rides per month to go to the doctor's or the VA hospital, and 1 free ride a month to go to the grocery store, pharmacy, or personal visit, which is to help veterans maintain their independence and quality of life. Secondly, they have an Honor a Veteran program, which will be discussed by Deidre at our April 21st meeting. She asked to be put on the agenda, and a representative from the veterans will also be joining us that evening to go over Honor a Veteran program. The third thing is a Youth Opportunity Union, which is a grant, micro grants for after-school drop-ins for use. They range from $10,000 to $75,000. The initiative will provide funding to create and enhance safe and welcoming spaces for where young people can gather, access resources, and build supportive relationships, such as we can pick out furniture and equipment, recreational equipment, computers and equipment to go with the computers, and theater or creative arts. The apps are due by February 28th at 4 p.m., and they're through the Dutchess County Grant Portal, and they will be announced sometime in April of this year, and they must be spent by the end of this year. So I will put all the links of everything I just spoke about I'll have them put on the website and the Facebook page tomorrow. And yes, we will be putting in for a grant for the youth, because we already have a youth program here that meets every Thursday or every other Thursday, depending on what time of the year it is. Okay, so I'm going to hand this over to Councilman Deegan for a presentation.
Yeah, thank you. So excited to have Sean from Archtop Fiber here. I think a lot of people will agree that something that always comes up in this town is the issue of having only one option for internet. And this came across my desk a while ago. I know Councilman Reifenberg had also reached out. I ended up having a great conversation with Sean, did some more research on my own. ended up speaking to a couple mayors and supervisors of towns that are local, that are actually engaged in this right now. I'm not going to steal Sean's thunder. He can tell that story, but had some really favorable conversations. So excited to hear what you have to say. So the floor is yours, sir.
The one instruction, it's not a good start, not an auspicious beginning. Okay, yeah, so why don't I just get started by telling you a little bit about me and who we are as a company and sort of where we're situated, and then I'll talk about the plan, and then more specifically what we're doing in Dutchess County, and even more specifically in Pleasant Valley. First and foremost, I'm Sean Bakai. I'm one of the founders. There are 4 of us. We have worked together in this industry for more decades than we are comfortable admitting. In fact, we all predate the internet as a concept in the telecommunications industry. We have built internet, cable TV, and telephone systems all over the world. There is a company called Bresnan Communications, which none of you will know because it didn't serve this area. Bill Bresnan was a leader and it's a bit of an icon in our industry and one of the earliest creators of, he created the video downlink from satellites to do live sports coverage. He created, like, he wired the Chrysler building. There were just all of these things in our industry, and fiber optics in particular were a passion of his. We built the telecommunications and cable systems throughout most of the Midwest. In fact, what you now know as Charter or Spectrum is roughly a little bit more than half made up of former systems that we have built, which when Mr. Bresnan passed away, they acquired. Most recently in the United States, we built all of Montana, all of Wyoming, about a third of Colorado, about 10% of Utah. Some of the toughest construction from a fiber optic perspective there is. A lot of rock and a lot of mountains in the Rocky Mountains, as you can imagine. We were, from a customer care perspective, we had won every customer care award so often that the Industry Trade Association asked us not to apply for a couple of years because they needed to give it to somebody else. And our metrics were just so good that they could not give it if we applied. It's something we're very proud of. In 2009, Mr. Bresnan passed away. Family and senior executives got together. The company was sold. Since then, we as a group have been doing some things together, some things apart. We started a company called Vive Broadband in Oklahoma and Texas. And I most recently was head of the telecom division of a investment group in Pittsburgh, but they owned a telephone company in New York, and I completed a 4,000-mile extension of fiber from Corning, New York, basically to Erie, Pennsylvania. And so if you call any of those counties or any of those townships and mention my name, it ultimately, there were more cows than people in Allegheny County and Chautauqua County, so this area. Now, I am local. I live in Rhinebeck. And upon completion of that project, I was literally driving home from a meeting in Albany and thinking, okay, this project's done. What do I do next? And the Hudson Valley has been, I don't even know how to explain my relationship with it. As a immigrant kid growing up in New York, inner city, New York City, we would come up to the Hudson Valley to a friend's farm in Columbia County in Old Chatham and look at these green things. They're called trees, and this is really where I first experienced nature, and it has been a passion of mine ever since. So no matter where I was in the world, Columbia County and Dutchess County were places that were a real touchstone for me. And so as I, at 57 years old, started thinking about the last thing I was going to do in my career, it was self-evident to me that we were going to do it in the Hudson Valley. We started identifying markets. Our basic premise is exactly what Dan just said. In areas where there is no fiber, and the Hudson Valley is shockingly a fiber desert, as we call it, and there's only one provider, which is the local cable company, we saw a market opportunity. So we raised roughly $300 million in equity and significantly more. Those from the New York State Pension Fund, the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund. So it's good long-term capital, which have invested in our projects throughout the world. Actually, I didn't mention, we were the first company to be awarded a license to provide internet in Poland after the Berlin Wall fell. And we built Warsaw, Krakow, basically all 7 of the largest cities in Poland. We built Santiago, Chile, from the middle of the continent all the way down to Tierra del Fuego. It was a 7,000-mile build. So constructing in this area doesn't alarm us even a little bit. So I've identified from Albany to Troy on either side of the river, all the way down to Rhinebeck and, sort of lower Dutchess County, to basically where Verizon stopped constructing their fiber product called Fios, which is sort of an incomplete line across Dutchess County, and we are going to build all the way to the point where that stops. Our market economics suffer as a third entrant into a market. So if you have 2 good competitors, that's a highly competitive market. A third upsets the rate of return on those. So we have identified single entrant markets across the Hudson Valley, and in order to start, we acquired a series or a constellation of old, basically 100-plus-year-old family telephone companies that have been in the same family, like the Germantown Telephone Company has been in the Bonsack family for 138 years. I've known Bruce for decades, and he was gracious enough to sell us a company that has been in his family. That means a lot. They don't sell those companies easily. They have to make sure that those companies ends up in the hands of a like-minded management team. Hancock Telephone Company over on the Delaware River, Warwick Valley down in Orange County have created a nexus of presence in these markets where we have existing customers, a good reputation, and we have the first leg of the stool of our business plan is to invest the money to upgrade all of those networks to the latest, what we call XGS-PON fiber, which is true multi-gig, 10 gig fiber duplex both directions and so our main product is a gig. We offer 2, 7, and ultimately 10 gig plus phone, and we are doing that right now. We've completely rebuilt Warwick Valley, about 20,000 locations. Finished Rhinebeck, which are some of the communities that Dan has spoken about. You can call the mayor, Gary and I are neighbors and friends, and as well as Red Hook and Tivoli and Kingston and Saugerties, and we are about $160 million into this roughly $300 million phase 1 build. So we have these phone companies that are around the Hudson Valley, and we are filling in the markets where the opportunity makes sense: the Kingstons, the Hudsons, the Saugerties, the Rhinebecks. And then there is the sort of third leg of the stool. The first leg is the phone companies. The second leg is this greenfield build out. And then the third leg of the stool is and it's not, frankly, all that important to us from a market perspective, but there is, as you probably are aware, $40+ billion in federal money being pushed into the fiber deployment ecosystem by the NTIA, the National Telecommunications Infrastructure Administration, through the Empire State Development Corporation in New York. That's called BEAD, or you may have heard of that. We have already been granted $30 million by the state to complete a fiber ring in Sullivan County, which is where I was today with the county government there, and to extend to 22,000 unserved locations in Sullivan County. And that project has been awarded to us, and we are starting construction on that right now. That is in addition to the 170,000 locations in our phase 1 project, the 35 or so thousand locations in the phone companies we have purchased, and we have already started processing and licensing and permitting on a phase 2 to another 110,000 locations. And our offices are right here. We are the first company to retrofit a brownfield development, the old IBM facility in Kingston, which has been a white elephant since the 90s. We just passed 117 employees. 94% of them are local. The remaining 6% we've had to bring in from basically other people who've worked for me in the past or with me in the past. And so if you go to that, what has been empty for decades location, you'll see a bright sign, a completely reconditioned building. And following us into that building are Ulster County's economic development and workforce development offices. So we're seeing a real revitalization of an eyesore that has been there, and really a sort of open wound on the economy of this area. Because we all remember, we all have friends who either worked at the IBM facility or their parents worked at that IBM facility. And to see it starting to be revitalized is really heartwarming for us. And so that is just generally who we are and what we're doing. We are significantly delayed by permitting. We have the right to be on the telephone and electric poles, and our contracts with the electric utilities outline basically a 45-day permit process, which really can be extended to 90 days. We are running on average 370 days to get a permit from an electric utility right now. So we are a year behind. Not only that, but the cost to do that, what we call make-ready work to attach to the pole, is up roughly 300 to 400% since there has been this rush to get more fiber out. The electric utilities see an opportunity to get companies like us to pay for deferred maintenance and other things on their network. So we are struggling with that. Just to be completely transparent, if there is one risk to our model, it is the delay to get into the markets that we have experienced. It has not deterred us. We're still spending our money. But as you can imagine, we're making payroll where we thought we would have fiber deployed and revenue coming in. We are now in this state of delay, and that is an expensive way to build, but the market opportunity and the passion we have for the Hudson Valley, we are in it for the long term. So just to go through the slides a little bit, my team helped me put this together for you guys, but we are completely vested in our communities. It is Bill Bresnan used to say, we're not successful because we take care of our communities, or we are successful because we take care of our communities. We don't take care of our communities because we're successful. In other words, we put our community efforts above the line. It's not a profit-based expense. It's part of our success architecture is to make sure that we are deeply in the community. So you can see that our people, these are all volunteer programs. We get out there and do coffee giveaways, and we were the largest, donor to the Toys for Tots programs in their history in this area. Oh, sorry. Yep. And and that's Matt, as you can see, loves to hug a dog. So, but as we go out and install people and meet people in the neighborhood, it is just very much a part. You can read through this. Here are all the various programs that we have had as we introduce ourselves to this neighborhood. Go to next. So, what are we looking at for you? This is just Dutchess County, is what you see. And what you see, those little blue dots, are all of the locations that would be eligible for some form of BEAD support. Now, the top left area are all of the areas that we are either constructed already or are in the middle of construction. And you can see it comes down through Rhinebeck, and then the three red boxes you see are applications we have put in for BEAD funding in the latest round, just as recently as a week ago. So you can see that's very relevant to what we're talking about here today. And the rest of those locations are really what we're here to talk about. Each one of those locations we see as a market opportunity. Some of them, and you can see in the Poughkeepsie area, you don't see a whole lot of them, and it looks like there's nothing there. What that is there are a ton of areas that have FiOS and Spectrum, so they're considered served and therefore not eligible for any future construction. But all of those other areas, as we get rural over the Connecticut border, are of interest to us as we expand through this plan over the next several years. We built, even though we were a year delayed, I built nearly 60,000 new locations in 2024. We have a similar plan to do better than that, but a similar amount subject to permits in 2025. We will be done with our Dutchess County plans certainly in 2025. Most of our Columbia County plans, a lot of our Ulster, and we will be progressing up into Albany and also starting the Sullivan County build. We are completed the Orange County build. And, next on the agenda are New Paltz. And, and again, subject to some of these grant applications, we would love to get started in Pleasant Valley as early as this summer. So if you keep going, I can talk about this plan, and I'm more than happy to bring a GIS person and really get down to the location by location, street by street. Because what we have done is approach communities where we are planning to build, and I would have been here in the last couple of weeks if Dan hadn't reached out to me. And Michael, I'm really sorry if I missed a call from you earlier. I don't recall getting it, but we would have been coming in here and playing this. And we have something called an MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, with roughly 30 counties, townships, villages around the Hudson Valley, which are really simple documents that say competitive broadband is good. We want as much of that here as possible. It's not a exclusive agreement, but to the extent that the municipality can help direct us, because while I love the Hudson Valley, I will never be as local as the people sitting behind that dais. So having direction from you about where we should build, future development, places that have been starved of investment in the past, and that's another thing that we pride ourselves in. If you go to Kingston to our build, we have a competitor there, and they went right to the wealthiest community, and that's where they stopped building. We started on one side of Kingston, and we are moving across through the midtown areas. We do not what we call redline communities. If we commit to build the community, we build the community. Anyone who doesn't do that has some answering to do as far as I am concerned. Just cherry picking the wealthier communities is not serving the community, and that's what we take that very, very seriously as a company and as individuals. We were taught that by Bill. He was a mentor to me. He plucked me out of a middle management role and gave me a senior job, and I'm standing here today as a founder of a mid-sized company because he believed in me and trained me on how to do things right the first time. What you're seeing are some technology that we use, various different ways we build fiber. On the left, you see someone attaching to a pole, and you will see the lowest fiber is the phone company, the middle fiber is the cable company, and we have to attach above it. So there are adjustments that need to be made to those poles in order to attach and get that aerial licensing. We've done a very, very new technology. We do it, Google does it, a few others. It's called micro trenching, and it cuts a 1-inch slot about 18 inches down in the roadbed, usually on the white line, the fog line. And it has been controversial. When it was first done, it was done at a much shallower depth, and frankly, road departments don't like people touching their roads, so there's a lot of discussion that needs to happen. If you go to Rhinebeck right now, you will see the entire village was done with this micro trenching technology, and Mayor Bassett loves it. And it's all underground. It's not aerial. It's not subject to ice damage like today, where we have aerial plant and have guys running around putting it back up because of the ice. So we really like that technology. It's a little bit more expensive to deploy, but if you have a good relationship with the municipality, like Dutchess County is willing to give us sort of blanket access to several hundred miles of county roads. Sullivan County has already granted us that for that build. So 100% of the 250-mile build in Sullivan County is all underground. and we'll either use that micro-trenching technology or something that we call stitch boring. Those are both the images that you see. This is actually in Red Hook that you see. We deployed that technology, and in the public right-of-way, we will every 50 feet or so dig a hole. We put a tarp down, all the dirt and the soil and the grass go onto that tarp, and we will use a boring device, a directional drill, to go from hole to hole to hole. And where there is the need to get back into that area, like a splice case, we will put a hand hole. And one thing that we never deploy are those 3-foot high, sort of ugly green pedestals that are in front of we don't do that. Everything we do is below ground. Even our aerial installations, if there is a drop necessary, it happens below ground. And our boxes that you see are flush with the ground with a green lid. And you will see when we're done, that's the process of digging on those tarps. When we're done, we cover that back up, put grass and seed down, and you'll see it pretty much disappears. So you don't have any more aerial infrastructure, you don't have the big ugly green pedestals. And from one of those grass locations, we will trench using a vibratory plow, which acts like a scissor, and it opens up the grass. We put a conduit in, put the grass down and seed it, so it really looks, a lot of those are actually drops that you can't see. And so those are the 3 deployment technologies that we use. They're all 3 of them. Even microtrenching at this point is a well-vetted technology, and they are the 3. Aerial is the cheapest, takes the longest because of permitting delays. Microtrenching is the most expensive, but in my opinion, the easiest from a municipality's perspective, because they can say, okay, here's the map, here's the location, go and do this. The problem is your road crews were going to say, there are other facilities there like gas and electric, and so going through one dig and all those things, it's a complicated process. And once they realize, if you go over to Ulster County or the town of Ulster or anywhere else that we're digging right now, or they ultimately come to terms with the fact that we are a responsible entrant, we are responsive to their concerns, we do what we say we're going to do when we're going to do it. We're not perfect. We've hit a couple of water lines, that are mislocated, as we call UDIG, and those others. It happens. It's not whether or not it happens, it's how you respond to it that I would put out as what makes the difference between a responsible company and irresponsible. We show up the moment it happens, we pay for the damage, we move on. If we can throw in a heartfelt apology in that process and make sure that we leave it better than we found it, people will usually say, okay, it kind of sucked that they hit my water line, but they took care of it and they were polite about it too. And so if you go on to the next page, this is just a sort of take you through roughly what our pricing is. The standard sort of flagship product is a gig, roughly 10 times as fast for half the price from our competitor. You will also find that cable architecture is what's called a hybrid fiber coaxial architecture. There is a node in front of your house, and there are dozens of your neighbors will all use the same bandwidth in that node. So you may notice that your internet speeds are fine at 2 in the morning or 4 in the afternoon when there's nobody home. But at dinner time and at movie time, things slow and you'll start seeing tiling and delays. That's because it's a best efforts service, and that's just, there's no escaping that. That's how their network is designed. We provide a dedicated gig or a dedicated 2 gig or 7 gig to every home. And it's duplex, which means it's a gig up and a gig down. And so it is quite simply the best service that exists, and it's called XGS-PON. The FiOS product that you see around here is what it's called. It's PON, or Passive Optical Network Architecture as well, but it's limited to a gig. And this is XGS-PON, which is the next generation. You can get it in Singapore, you can get it in New York City, in Seattle, some of the Google markets, but it is something that we are on the cutting edge of deploying. Other companies are behind us on this. It's not proprietary architecture, it's just expensive. So those are our basic pricing, and as I said, we do not offer a linear video product. I believe that paid for a lot of college and things like that in my life, but it is a dying architecture. The concept of sitting on your couch and getting a sort of cable service is, it's, as you know, everything is migrating to a streaming architecture. I don't believe we've seen our future there yet. The streaming is still a little wonky, but every year it's getting better. The search engines, it's becoming a collection of real products as opposed to a migration from an old to something unknowable at this point. But we do a good job of advising which over-the-top services you may or may not need, including a cable-like service like YouTube TV or Hulu or some of the others. And as soon as there is a true replacement that makes sense, we would get into that business. But as of right now, we believe that the relationship about video content is between you as the end user and your streaming service. We will provide the pipe to get there, and it will be the most secure, fastest, most reliable pipe that exists. We also offer, because we believe it's not that it's going to be a massive business, but the business of a landline phone service. And we also provide that service for actually all of the municipalities that we pass. We actually just hooked up the town of Rhinebeck's police department today, the village of Rhinebeck, the village of Rhinebeck Police Department, their fire department, the city of Kingston, city of Warwick Valley, city of Vernon, like everywhere, and Saugerties, the village and the town. So it is a feather in our cap that when the service is available, town of Woodstock, we're installing soon. The municipalities, the law enforcement, the 911 facilities, the fire departments immediately adopt our service because it is secure, reliable, and durable in the event of weather. And so with that, if you keep going, so who we are from a family of employees, and I don't use that, that's a sort of a cheap statement that a lot of companies throw away. I've worked with some of the people that are at our company for many, many decades. As I said, we build a family of employees. Lots of companies say that. I will hold us up against any company that any of you have ever heard of in terms of relationships with our employees. And how do we do that? We pay top of the range. We hire full-time workforces. We don't outsource our call centers, and we minimize contractors. We hire full-time employees. We do our own workforce and training. And as I said, we are now well over 100 full-time employees. Our corporate offices are in Kingston, 11 minutes from my Rhinebeck house, which I am super pleased about. All of our design engineers, our fiber splicers, our installers, all of that operates out of there. Our training, we have partnered with Ulster County BOCES, which is moving into our facility. We've given them some real estate to do that. And we are creating a pipeline of workforce training through that, so you can go to school at either Ulster County or BOCES in our building, learn a curriculum that we helped create, migrate from your school right to a full-time job without ever having to leave the building, and get trained in one of the fastest growing fields in America today, which is fiber and internet. We do use subcontractors. It's just an algebra problem. If you have 6,000 miles of fiber to build and you can build a mile a day per crew, we're not going to hire that number of crews, and then once we're done, we'll let them all go. It's just, I have worked with this same group since I was in my 20s, and we have never had a layoff ever. And I plan on retiring, being able to say that, because I honestly don't know how I would get through that mentally. So, while we do use contractors, they are contractors of long standing to us. And while they may not work for us as employees, they are part of our group or family. And then we have, really, really strong commitment to localism. It's in our marketing, it's in the fact that we hire locally, it's in, just virtually everything we do. But that relationship is only authentic to the extent that I wasn't born and raised in, I didn't go to Rhinebeck High School. I was born and raised in an immigrant family in Harlem, and I learned about this area, so I will never be as local as a truly local person. I love the area, and I plan on spending my retirement here and never moving anywhere else. But our relationships with this body and the people in this audience are what drives our authenticity on localism. So we are constantly hungry. So when Dan asked me to come and speak, it wasn't just me telling you who we are. It's an appeal for you guys to stay in touch with us, tell us what we're doing right, but more importantly, tell us what we're doing wrong so we can fix it. And I think that's what, if you ask any of the other municipalities around us, it's again, like I said earlier, it's not the fact that you did something wrong, because everybody does. It's how you react to it and how you own it that differentiates you. And the town supervisor and the mayor of Kingston said to us when we first joined, there was a major blackout and outage, if you remember, it's about 5 or 6 years ago, and it took them almost 6 months to get someone from Spectrum to show up at a town meeting to talk about what had happened. You all have my card. My cell phone is on that card. If you go to my website and look us up as Founders, all of our cell phones are there. Do we do that because we like to get phone calls from disappointed customers at 2 o'clock in the morning? Of course not. No one likes that. But the difference is we're willing to, because we all put our own skin in the game on this, and it matters. And if you can't get me on the phone, what does that say to our employees or our customers? It means I don't care. Well, let me tell you, I do, and I do because you can see my cell phone on my card and on my website, and it has always been there from when I was 20 to when I am pushing 60. Keep going. Domestic supply chains. It is something that it is important through the BEAD and BABA programming funding, but we have been doing this since the earliest days of our creation. Creating strong supply chains with American manufacturers allows us to do what we do when other people struggle. During COVID, I was able to build 4,000 miles of plant across the southern tier of New York when most people had stopped building because they couldn't get access to materials and technology. Our relationship with the Corning Corporation, which happens to be a New York corporation, is so good for so long that we were able to get maybe not everything we wanted, but everything we needed. We have the same relationship with the plastics manufacturers, the fiber manufacturers, the pole manufacturers, the hardware manufacturers. We have kept those for decades. We pay our bills, we are strong negotiators, but we often joke, we seek the good guy discount. We pay our bills in net 30, and we work really hard on making sure that we get the best products for our money, and if one of our vendors has a problem, he can call my cell phone. So, keep going. You can see fields of fiber that are right now behind, well, a lot of that is already used up already, and those are the cases that I talked about that sit in the ground. And so, you can see we're very real. If you drive over to iPark in Kingston right now, you will see tens of millions of dollars in fiber optic inventory that is in the process of getting pushed out to, we have 17 different construction locations as of today, although this ice and snow is slowing us down. Keep going. Our network speeds are quite simply the best that exist. Can't get any faster than what we provide. We have the latest technology, what we call our OLTs. We give everything an acronym, so the optical light transmission device, which is the laser that shoots the service down that it's a piece of glass about the size of a human hair. And then we put in every 20 kilometers, we'll put a hub site. What you are seeing right there is, I believe, the Saugerties hub site. But it may be Rhinebeck. They look so similar. No, that's Saugerties. Rhinebeck has a wooden fence. And we will build that in a location. We'll find a right-of-way. We will put a generator, and it is an all dielectric network, so the only electronics in the network are either in this hub site or in your house. And for that, we put a generator here, and we'll put a battery backup in your house, so we tend to stay up when other services go down. It's not perfect, because blackouts tend to take out our network partners. You know, networks are interwoven webs of providers. Not everybody is going to have our attention to detail on power backups, so we may lose some services. But for the most part, we build the most durable network that we know how to build. Again, 10 gig XGS PON. We design everything with a redundant self-healing core. What does that mean? If you look at our network, there's a big ring that supports each one of these hub locations, and that ring is bidirectional and has 3 different drains. So if there's a cut anywhere in our network, the system fails over to the other direction. So if it is going and it is stopped by that cut, it automatically bounces back and goes to an internet drain. We own a data center in Albany called INOC, and we drain in New York City on the southern side, and we have another drain down in our Hancock facility, which goes down to Virginia. So we have a very, very secure network that is self-healing, and it is not a fly-by-night operation. As we say, we tend to build the whole community. We tend to build it with self-healing and ring. We use the latest technologies. That backup power infrastructure is extraordinarily expensive to deploy, but it's absolutely necessary if I'm going to stand up here and look you in the eye and say, it's going to work when you need it to work in a snowstorm, not just on a nice 4th of July afternoon. That's about it on this page. Again, happy to answer any questions. If you guys read these things and want to redline any of them and get back to me, evidence to the contrary, getting here tonight, I am usually pretty responsive. So by all means, happy to answer any questions. We look forward to getting started here. And what I really look forward to is sort of showing you our plans as they evolve and getting direction from you. And if you can talk to Sue at the county or Gary and your neighbors and see that we really mean it when I say, tell me what we're doing right, but really tell me what we should be doing to best serve this area, because we will only be successful not if we build it, but if we sign up customers. And we can't sign up customers if they don't like us. So be likable.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anybody have any questions?
I just want to say it's awesome to see a local company taking on some of these major corporations, and it excites me that, I'll give you an example. I'm not going to name the name, but I just paid $93 last month for 400 megabytes. So the fact that you're offering, I don't even remember the price, but it was lower than that for a whole gig on fiber optics. It's
69,
yeah, it's pretty amazing. So whatever we can do here as a board to make that move as quickly as possible, you have my support. So
Thank you.
I don't know what page it was, but anyway, where you have the aerial fiber, that page.
Yep.
You have the micro trenching, and did you make a comment that you were already approved in Dutchess County on the county roads?
Yes, now micro-trenching, they have approved it. We have not done it on a county road yet. We have, actually, that's not true. We've done it on some county roads in Rhinebeck, but Rhinebeck took the lead on that permit. So we are micro-trenching as we speak in Dutchess County, but the big the big county road build, sorry. We have a little bit more to do with their road department. They're very enthusiastic, but we just want to make sure that all of their questions are answered. And let's face it, road departments, I said it before, they hate when we cut their roads, particularly if they've just blacktop them and then we cut it. Now, we tend to cut into them, again, along that white line, and then we will repaint the white line so it looks like we were never there. And again, that's the secret to our success. If we can touch your front lawn and seed it, and then in a few weeks in the spring, it looks like we were never there, you love us. If we mess up your front lawn and we don't come back and seed it, you hate us. If we cut the road and we leave a mess behind us, you don't like us. If we cut the road and it's perfect when we replace it, you like us. So what do? It's pretty obvious. You'd think that most companies would figure this out, but we are, passionate about that. Now, it is still a newer technology. The State Department of Transportation, man, if you want to know how to help us, teach me to speak DOT, because I don't speak their language.
Thank you. Thank you for coming
So I had a
also.
question, Sean, I think that was great. You mentioned federal funding. Is there a concern with the new administration? And what does that look like? And then what does that look like to us?
I mean, we all read the newspaper every day and scratch our head and wonder what's going to happen next. Which side you're on that argument, you're still wondering what's going to happen next. It was just a little over a week ago that they pulled all of the funding of not just the telecom funding, but everything. We all sort of scratched our head and said, well, how do you do that? You have contracts that you have to live up to. This is going to be a massive, the only people who are going to do well here are the lawyers. And so obviously they walked that back and they've redistributed that money. Are they strategizing on a way to, come back at it from a different angle, which they were perhaps be more successful to stop it? There is a lot of chatter about they want to pull that money so it can be given to Elon Musk, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
Would you say that your industry already dodged that bullet, or is it coming down
As
the pike?
of now, yes,
Was it taken away and given back already?
yes.
Okay.
It was taken away, and then they said, just kidding, we really weren't. So they didn't actually take it away, they didn't actually give it back, but it just got pulled out of that executive order as one of now. Chairman Carr at the FCC has been making noise about changing it. They have just appointed a head of the NTIA, who's someone I've known for years. She's a Ted Cruz former staffer. She doesn't like public funding. She really hates it. So whether or not she makes some fundamental changes, but at this point the train is so far down the tracks, and you can argue about BEAD being created 4 years ago, and it's taken 4 years to get the money out the door, or even close to it, and you can criticize the government all you want. At the end of the day, each state has its own BEAD program award. They have their own processes. We're in the process of filing these applications. In some cases like us, they've already granted us the Sullivan County Award. How do you stop that? But I won't say that they won't try. Just someone who comes out of Congress. Before getting in this industry, I was chief of staff at the Commerce Committee when they rewrote the Telecommunications Act in '96. So I'm a little bit knowledgeable about how things happen in Congress. The right to spend money was vested by the Founding Fathers in the U.S. House of Representatives. So all of this chatter about executive orders pulling back the funding isn't constitutional. Most people know that. It's just, how does it get through all of the litigation necessary to figure out the new normal that we are living in? And does that happen before our next election? And does everything change in the next election? I can sit here and talk politics all you want. You don't want me to. So.
I just had one last question. So what I could benefit from, maybe everybody, so let's say we wanted to do this. What is the process? Like, how does that actually work? Yeah.
Well, you invite me to come back and I will bring my GIS people, and we will show you exactly what we are building now to more detail than I was able to put in this deck, which is something you asked before, and I apologize. It's just,
But then you show us that, let's say you show us Elm Street, we see it, and then you would go out and actually do that, whether it's on the poles or whether it's micro-trenching, and then the people that live on that street have the option to opt in, but
Yes.
it's there.
yes,
So you're essentially putting the cost up with the strong faith that people are gonna come on board.
roughly on average about $90,000 a mile, and we're building, close to 3,000 miles of it right now.
Do you have a
That's on
sense
your
of how
back.
many, oh, sorry.
Sorry about that, Dan. So that's on your guys' back. That's nothing to deal with the town cost at all, other than us just saying,
With the exception of the BEAD funding, we will never ask, we are a privately funded company.
Okay.
So nothing and the MOUs that we have with the municipalities, there is no part of that MOU that creates a commitment by the municipality to spend a dime. What we really ask for those MOUs for me to do an application costs me roughly about $75,000 to $100,000 in engineering and processing to get one of those very complex applications into the funding agency. The funding agencies will not, or I have never seen one fund an application where the local municipalities aren't vested in that project. You can send me a sort of lightly worded support letter, which doesn't really mean a whole lot, or if we have an MOU that says, you know, the town of Pleasant Valley believes that that internet is important and everybody should have a competitive service, and we'll do whatever we can to support Archtop in deploying it. Now, it's not exclusive. You're more than welcome to sign that same agreement with anybody else. It doesn't have a term. You can cancel it at any time. But for me to spend the $70,000 to put an application in, I need some expression that you guys want us to do it. And also, the applications themselves are better when I am working side by side with your GIS people and your road people and you as a body
Right.
to say, okay, your network looks pretty good this way, but are you really capturing the fact that there's a 300 home subdivision going in over here that you don't have any visibility into as a guy who lives in Rhinebeck? And so that kind of interchange and exchange of ideas and design optimizes our network. And that's my pitch here.
Do you have a sense of, you might not, but this might be tough, but do you have a sense of idea of how many houses you could address in Pleasant Valley?
14,700, I believe, was the number.
And then just looking at it, at a business, now, the pricing that you gave, is that just for residential, or is that also business?
That is residential.
Okay,
Business is a much, much more diverse product suite with hosted voice services.
Correct.
Complex phone systems.
so that you also have that, that's just for the people watching and stuff, just,
100
That's
gig
all.
DIAs,
Correct.
all of that stuff. But we do have a PON-based small business product, which is roughly about 50% higher for a couple of different reasons, which we would
Correct.
explain. But yes, we do provide, in fact, quite a bit of business services.
okay. Thank you.
No further questions on my end. Thank you.
Thank you very
Great.
much.
Call me anytime.
It's
and
very informative.
Likewise, if anyone has any.
Thank you. You have a good evening. Okay, I'd like a motion to open the public comment portion of the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
If anybody'd like to speak?
Hi, Mary Meyer, Clark Heights. Just my question, as he's leaving, but it's actually for our town attorney. Does our recently signed contract with Spectrum allow us to sign an MOU with somebody else? I'm just curious. None of you guys asked this. I figured I'd ask.
It's a totally different service. It was for cable, not for internet. This is just for internet and phone.
Well, also, I know that was a big concern when we went through the public hearings, and we pretty much stated that it wasn't a monopoly or an agreement, that they have exclusive rights, even though people say it was, so.
Gary Vader, South Point Turnpike, Pleasant Valley. It's a good presentation, a little long. It would be, seeing that's on the agenda with for here. Doesn't look like my driveway. I think it would behoove the board to consider residents here when the person is here to be able to ask questions.
Okay, not seeing anyone else, I'd like to make a motion to close the public comment portion of the meeting.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
New business discussion. We have to scratch this for tonight because poor Nikki is home pretty sick. So we'll go on to old business discussion. 13A, new town hall update. Councilman Reifenberg?
Yeah, so I'll keep it as short as possible here. It's been 2 weeks, and lots happened. I showed you guys pictures 2 weeks ago, so I'm just going to show you some new updates. It's moving along pretty well. So I think 2 weeks ago I showed you a bunch of trenches and things dug out, and it was ready for pipes to be laid and all that stuff on the first floor. So you can see a lot of the piping's actually been laid already, and it's already been filled in. There's some compaction testing and stuff going on. I think I just got an email that they'll be out there at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning to do some more. You can see there's orange marks there. There you have to put rebar in when they pour and all this crazy stuff. So that's what you see getting prepped there. This is the second floor now, and you can see a bunch of duct work. It's actually pretty impressive how they do this. They go and they map out all the different levels with a computer and a laser and all this stuff, and it builds a 3D model, and then they actually build all of the duct work off-site, and then they bring it in, and then they just have to put it up and install it and hook it together. So it's moving insanely fast. You can see some of it there. There's a lot of it. I'll point out, just because if anybody asks later, you can see a bunch of holes throughout the second floor when I'm showing you some of these pictures. What those are is the contract requires that the electrical contractor removes any existing wire that's not going to be used for anything else. So there's a bunch of holes everywhere, which is just for them to gain access to those wires to remove them. You'll see in some of the pictures the sheetrock's actually hanging just down from them. That all has to be replaced and patched and everything like that. So. This is that gigantic area that was removed downstairs where the 2 bathrooms are on the first floor. It was about a 3-foot deep hole after they got done. And you can see just all of the different piping. A lot of it's covered up, and then it kind of runs to this long trench that goes all the way to the edge of the building. But that's in there. This is a better view of that. Just a lot going on in that one area. That's why they kind of just removed everything. This is up in the attic. This is a tough picture, but if you really get in there, you can see the new HVAC duct work and stuff is already pretty much done up there. There's some more there up in the attic. So basically the contract required that they remove any existing. So all the air handlers, all the duct work that was up there all had to be taken out before they could start. So this is all brand new. This is the second floor again. They've started putting up partitions and walls. You'll see in a couple more pictures here a little bit better view of that, but you can see they're starting to lay that all out. This is what it looks like. They're all metal. This is the second floor. This is the main entrance for the public. So this is the foyer area. When you would walk in, there'd be double doors. And then this is the main lobby into the where the main town offices are. When you walk in, there'll be a window to the left for the town clerks. To the right would be the assessors. And then in front of you is the planning and zoning department. This kind of shows you, if you were just walking in from the foyer, there's the service window for the town clerk's office behind there. And you can see they're getting it all basically laid out right now. And yeah, we're just moving along. I don't know if the last time I gave you an update, if the trailers were there, but now there's more trailers on site if people are driving by. Temporary electric gets ready to go. If you drive by, you'll see the big mast sitting there. We're just waiting on Central Hudson to come out and do the inspection on that. The contractors requested that we do a building permit. We weren't going to do one. So the town has an open building permit, and we worked with the building inspector. So the building inspector is now going to be a second set of eyes, checking certain items. I know he already inspected the plumbing that went in. Any questions? I have some stuff that I'm going to talk to you about, an attorney-client, about some of the stuff going on with contractors and stuff, but I don't think we should be talking about that in public, but any questions about any of the other stuff? No?
mean-
Okay.
Is still on schedule?
Yeah, I'm just going to say on schedule. I'm not going to say anything else 'cause I don't want to jinx us, but yeah, everything's going well.
Thanks, Michael. Councilman Deegan is going to speak about continued dog law discussion.
Yeah. So, I think it's the same group of people here that were here that one night, the Hardy Bunch, when we had that long discussion about the dog laws. So if you don't remember, I think we had a pretty colorful debate in a workshop meeting, which is what the workshop meeting is for, where we were discussing kind of what we were passing, and then I had some ideas. And then there was legal guidance that said the best way to move forward was to pass the law, and then I would be able to come and suggest some suggestions to it, and so that's why I agreed to that. So that's what this is. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. So I think really what I'm looking to do is just put this back out here for us to discuss now and then make a decision as a board so we can kind of wrap this thing up. But my thought was, if people don't remember that meeting, I wanted to see a path where we actually could allow dogs. Right now, the law was written, correct me if I'm wrong, but we said no, dogs are not allowed in any of the parks. And I think the change was, and I'm paraphrasing, but except for areas that we say dogs are allowed, right? Like, okay, thank you. So what I'm suggesting now is this is what I want to suggest. So I'm going to keep this very easy. I'm going to put up my ideas, and then the rest of the board can speak on it. But I think specifically for Bauer, what I would like to see is we allow dogs on a leash, on the driveways, up to the parking lot. We can debate whether we allow them in the parking lot or not. But I do feel that people walking their dogs, they have to clean up, they have to keep them on a 6-foot leash, but walking along the driveway, up that long strip, I don't see any risk there. If we want to allow them around the parking lot or not, if that's getting too close to the fields, fine, I'm open to talking about that. But my suggestions would be, we allow that, they have to clean up, they have to keep them on the leash at all times. We move the dog sign, the no dogs allowed sign, from the entrance back in, so it's clear that they're allowed up to that point, but beyond that point, they're not allowed. I would suggest we put in poles where they can clean up, the dog poop bags or whatever, make it super easy to follow the law, and give people the benefit of the doubt. The thought is that people aren't gonna follow the rules. I'd like to say, they are going to follow the rules, and let's catch them doing something right and hope for the best. And if not, then we have the ability to go back and say, you know what, we tried, we gave people the benefit of the doubt, and they let us down. But that's my thought.
I fully 110% agree. Dan and I have discussed this in depth. We're both fully aligned. I'm a dog mom, and I have nowhere to walk my dogs in my own town, and I'm right now, unfortunately, told that I have to go to another park in another town to go walk my dog. So, and I've been asked by many people who live along North Avenue who walk their dogs there to reconsider. Even people who live in the apartments that have their own little dog park do go across the street and like to walk their dogs over there, but now they're being told that they can't. But I 110% agree. There's got to be a happy medium. It's not fair to people. There are people out there who don't have children, who their dogs are their children, and we're telling them that they can't take their children, their furry children, to our park. And there has to be a happy medium for our dog lovers out there.
But they have to obey the rules. This is something that I'm really adamant about with people with the leashes and everything. Dan and I have had several conversations over the past several months about Rettle Park. And that has always been a place that I thought may be a good area for us to do something with. And we've discussed it a few times or several times. And I just feel like we would be able to do something at Rettle Park to make a very big walking area in general and be able to use the poles with the poop bags, so to speak, or whatever you call them, and and be able, again, with a 6-foot leash, and make a trail around with like some item 4 or something like that, that would be open all year round, except it would not be, the snow wouldn't be taken off of it and stuff like that, ice. But I think that's another avenue that we would be able to do. I just am really adamant with people at Bauer, because of all the kids that go in and out of there, that they stay on that driveway back and forth. And it is a pretty good amount of walking area. So, yeah.
I mean, when we discussed that too, this was gonna be a probationary period where we were gonna say, we're putting our faith in our residents and
Yeah,
on our fellow neighbors.
that's
And
true.
we're
We did
rooting for
talk-
you.
yeah.
We're rooting for you. We're rooting for this to work. And if
Yeah.
it doesn't, well, dang, man, we tried. So like the
Right.
goal of this, if anybody doesn't remember, the fines are pretty steep. Like if somebody is not following the rule, you know, they're gonna get a warning, but there's gonna be fines
Right.
and they're painful. 250, 500, and 750, that's a serious offense, because this is serious. We talked about the health issues, all those things, like you go to a lot of these other towns, they don't allow dogs anywhere. So we're trying to be good stewards here, but we're, you know, yeah.
So I just want to, I'm in agreement with everything that's been said, but I just for the people is, the only reason this discussion even came up was, and the only reason we ever even banned dogs from everywhere was because we needed to do a reset, because nobody was following any rules, and it was like the Wild West out there, and there was just dogs running everywhere. So while we figured out all of the law portion of this, we had to just take a pause, and I know that upset a lot of people, but I don't think the intention of anybody on the board was to ever 100% ban dogs from parks. So I mean, I'm in 100% agreement that, yeah, the driveway in Bauer Park, why not, as long as they're following the rules. And I think the time period has passed that if we catch you on the camera not following the rules, like people still don't follow the rules, you're not getting a warning anymore. You're going to get a summons in the mail from the town, and after 3 strikes, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I think that period of time of us going out there and being nice and having a conversation 3 times a month with you is over with. So I'm totally fine with that, but as a board, we need to be supportive of the offices that are going to be the ones enforcing this and supporting them when, because we are going to be issuing fines to people, because there are people in this town who think they can do whatever they want, unfortunately, and we shouldn't allow that to ruin it for the other people.
And I don't think that's gonna continue, because if it's that big of a problem, we're gonna go back to where we are right now.
Well, and
Right?
I think to your point is, I don't see us ever going back to, closing off the driveway or whatever. I don't think that's the intention, but I think the problem is we haven't actually enforced anything because we didn't have the law to enforce it.
Having the law, but
Yeah.
going with the fines and following through needs to be done.
Yeah, now that we
That
have a
way,
law,
People doing right are fine.
we have a way of actually enforcing this and stopping the few people that are ruining it for everybody else. I'd also throw in there that, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but, Katie Field here, it's pretty delineated between the sports field and the playgrounds and stuff like that, and just the parking area and the grass strip between the parking area and the creek. I mean, I would even consider saying, hey, you can be in the parking lot and you can be, because people are going to walk in town here, and it would be nice to bring the dog down to the creek and let them jump in and whatever, but you can't go into the park area where kids are playing and your dog can't be doing its thing on the field and all of that. So I would even add that in there.
I'm on board with that.
And,
I agree.
and just to your point with the people up on North Avenue, I mean, the reason why they walk in Bauer Park is because the place they live doesn't allow them to walk their dogs. So I get it, we could be all upset about a certain situation, but we really should be getting on some of these apartment complexes and stuff. They have a dog park, but they have signs up that they can't walk their dogs. So it's like, it doesn't make sense to me, but that's a whole nother argument. So I'll make a motion right here and then that we allow and make it happen that at Bauer Park, dogs are permitted on the driveway in and the driveway out, and that is it. And whatever needs to happen to make that happen, happens. And at Katie Field, dogs would be allowed in the parking area and the areas outside of the fence
Outside the fence,
at Katie
outside the
Field.
Yep.
I just need a second.
Second.
I'll second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we'll see how it goes.
And then with what Mary said, then what do we have to get on board with up at Rettle Park then to start getting something done?
That's a whole planning process.
We gotta,
So we're gonna put you right on that.
okay, that's fine.
Okay there, big guy.
Dan and I said that originally. so-
Tag, you're it.
Okay, done. I need to support the people. We'll get it done.
Okay, 13C.
All right, so this is,
STR.
yeah, the short-term rentals. So at some point, guys, we have to have a conversation about where everybody stands on this because we can't just keep kicking the can down the road. I
That-
think
that
I've been
is
pretty
tonight, my
vocal
friend.
on this. There's been other board members vocal on this, but we have to come to an agreement of what we're going to actually send out on March 17th to the public because at some point we've heard from a bunch of people and we kind of need to wrap this up. So I'm just going to go through kind of my opinion on things. I sent out a kind of revised version. I'm going to go through a timeline because I know we have new board members. But basically, up to this point, we've held public hearings. We've had multiple public hearings. It's still open. We heard from a ton of people. I'm thankful. There's probably the most comments out of any public hearing I've had on the board, both in writing and here. The board then directed us a few months ago that Councilman Deegan and myself would sit down with Emily, our attorney, and Pat Lambert, the zoning administrator, and we both brought differing opinions about what this should be, and we sat down and we spent an hour and a half boxing it out. It was actually a very good meeting. We came to pretty much a close agreement, and we threw some revisions back and forth, and what I'm going to show you tonight is majority of what came out of that. Then we kind of were thrown a curveball with finding out that the state was actually considering, or they did, pass a law that deals with short-term rentals, and then there was a question of, are we allowed to make it now or not make it? And that's been up to this point, to this day, is we're allowed to continue forward. But I think now we need to have a sense of urgency to get it done before they change their opinion on that. I know I've had some very strong opinions on certain areas. I will be the first to admit that I'm not always right, and I can learn from doing research and taking classes and whatnot. And I think a lot of people will be surprised of where I'm going to suggest tonight, and I hope the board will consider it. I took a class actually yesterday morning in New York City. We, three of us attended the Association of Towns, and it was interesting. I didn't think it had anything to do with short-term rentals, but it was a class on tourism in New York State. And a good portion of that class talked about short-term rentals because, believe me, every single town is dealing with this issue of what do you do with short-term rentals? Do you allow them? I thought they would be like, oh yeah, they're great for the economy, they're great for tourism. And really what I took away from that was that short-term rentals, we can all agree, are beneficial to the community. They're good economic drivers for our small businesses. They bring new people into our town who might then decide to move here and want to purchase a home. It also helps maybe somebody who's struggling, maybe lost a job. It's a way of staying in their home and not having to move or downsize. And maybe it helps a new couple or get into a home and be able to purchase a home. So there's a lot of benefits to it. But at the same time, there needs to be regulation to make it a good thing. So this is a slide that they had in the presentation yesterday morning that I took a picture of, and it kind of breaks down two different short-term rentals. You have a short-term rental somebody who doesn't live in the town of Pleasant Valley purchases a home, and they never live here, and they basically are running as a business, and they rent it out to people, and that's their business. It has positives. We can all agree that there's positives to that. It's going to bring people to the town. It's going to boost the local economy, but there's also negatives with it. You know, it's going to sit vacant for 50% of the time. It's not going to be filled up 100% of the time. The money they make isn't getting used here. They're sending it back to the city or some investment company or whatever. So there are some negatives with that. Owner-occupied, on the other hand, enables maybe people that don't have the opportunity to purchase a home, but they purchase it as a residential house, and then they use Airbnb to rent out a room or whatnot. So there's two different types. One's very commercial, one's residential with a short-term rental on the side. So I'm going to take that down for a sec. And I think I know it might take a little bit, but I think, why is this not working now? Technology. I'm not going to take it down, you're right. Let me see if it'll let me bring what is going on? All right, we'll just do that. All right, well, I can't bring up the law because that's stuck up on the screen for some reason. There we go. Aha. Just give it a sec. Sorry. No, I just reset it so it would drop it off the screen. I was able to get rid of it though. Aye. So I think what would be beneficial is if we could go through this, and I'll zoom in, and we can kind of agree or disagree, so we have some direction for Emily to get a final copy to us at our next meeting, so we can put it out to the public, so the public's ready to comment on the 17th, and then maybe we can pass something. So, let's see. Everything up to this point has been the same. I'm just going to talk about the things that have been changed since you might have last seen it. So in the definition of a short-term rental, basically it talks in there the difference between a hosted and an unhosted rental and just defines that. That's changed a little bit because I don't think in the definition it had the difference between the two. That definition correlates a lot with, this isn't something that we just made up, like the state has a definition. We might actually have to tweak this to match the state, but this is where it starts changing. So required permitting, what I'm proposing, and it's kind of a 180 of what I was saying before, but in A, hosted short-term rentals are allowed anywhere in the town, so no restriction of where they would be, but they must meet the requirements of this section and obtain a permit. And this is where it changed. Unhosted short-term rentals will be regulated as a lodging facility and only allowed in zoning districts as permitted by that attachment. So what I'm suggesting is if you're an owner-occupied short-term rental, so either you rent a room in your house or you have a mother-daughter house and you're renting the basement out, but somebody is there and that's their residence, and or maybe the barn on the property has been properly transitioned to an area where people can live, that would just, you would have to follow the short-term rental permitting and it would be allowed anywhere in the town. If it was a commercial business where it's not somebody's main residence, then it would have to follow the special use permitting process that's already laid out in our law currently of a lodging facility, a bed and breakfast, whatever it is. So instead of reinventing the wheel of how we're going to handle them, we already have that. It would allow them still, but it would be in specific areas within the town. Is anybody 100% against that before I move on?
No, because some of this is what we've already spoken about.
I'm just going to keep going through, and please speak up because I'd like to get through it and change this stuff while we're going. So B.
No, so, I mean, part of this is what you're adding is what's been scratched out were my comments, and those were to address the very thing that now the definition of hosted versus unhosted is solving. So my point with this, just to kind of support what you're saying, Mike, is that my issue with this was something that's clearly a commercial operation going into a clearly residential area. I mean, we can debate about it, but we know what a neighborhood looks like and we know what a business looks like. And this is addressing that because of the hosted, unhosted nature of that now.
And when we came out of our meeting, just to give some background for the board and the folks watching, is we had actually had this convoluted conversation that in like residential like neighborhoods in certain zoning areas, there's a different characteristic than a rural area where the properties are larger, and there was just this crazy thing that we were going to come out with that was just going to get very difficult to go through. But So on B here, what we suggested is going to a 1-year permitting cycle, and we got rid of the rest of the stuff there. So instead of 2 years, it's every year, and the idea behind that is that the town would have better oversight on what's actually going on. I'm only going to go over the stuff that's changed. This was just a change for 1 year, and we changed it down to it must be renewed 60 days prior to expiration instead of the 90 days. We got rid of, hold on, it's moving very slow. Come on. What is going on? Sorry.
And just to add to what you were saying, I mean, personally, there was a thought of coming out completely against short-term rentals, but that would actually be punishing residents of Pleasant Valley that are using short-term rentals to help augment their income to stay in their home. So that we would think we're protecting our town, but we'd actually be punishing people that are neighbors. So that's the reason why there has to be some flexibility. And that, again, that I think is solved for the most part with hosted versus unhosted. And any town you go to, Millbrook had this, I think Rhinebeck calls it out. If you go back to the meeting where I was talking about my number one concern in terms of short-term rental was the impact on rent and raising rent for people that are having a hard enough time affording it now. It's always broken down to unhosted. It always falls on unhosted. The hosted always seems to be a bit more benign, but it's the unhosted that seems to be causing a lot of the issues.
Yeah, and I think that's, we have to recognize as a town that there are people that would be negatively impacted. Think about the elderly couple, the senior couple who might be forced out of their home because it's gotten so expensive. Well, this might be the opportunity to allow them to have people stay with them and offset some of the cost. And at the very end of this, I'm going to have a big caveat of I'm okay with all of this, but, and I'll get to that after I show you all this stuff. Sorry, it doesn't like being zoomed in like this. So. What was that? This is 6. So we just changed something that a simple sketch is sufficient. You don't need to go to a professional architect to get a layout of what's going on your property. We added septic and wells on that to be indicated. We changed, there was a type.
Mike, with that, where the simple sketch and that, is that also going to be like available for the fire department?
Yeah, so the fire, the fire department,
Just so
as
they
far
know,
as
you
I
know.
know,
Okay.
they already have.
If they want,
Yeah, I think the whole idea was all of this stuff when the planning and zoning office approves it, it would be sent to the fire department
Okay.
that this is a short-term rental and
Okay, right.
this whole packet would be sent with them. We got rid of something down here. Okay, so B had something that they could apply to the ZBA to get a variance for items that we put in the town law. We got rid of that because obviously, if we put it in the law and we all agree it should be in the law and the public believes it should be in the law, then like sleeping capacity, parking capacity, there's reasons why they're that way. We felt that it kind of doesn't make sense to then just allow them to go get a variance and potentially deal with, put this on the ZBA of having to deal with all these variances for stuff that seems pretty straightforward. So we had crossed that whole section out just to keep it more streamlined. Not much changed in here. There's some stuff here. I'm trying to zoom in on big chunks at the same time. So 12, and this might be a controversial one, but maximum capacity for each short-term rental unit in all other zoning districts shall not exceed 2 people per bedroom shown on the floor plan. And then it said the maximum occupancy of a short-term rental will not exceed 8 people, including permanent residents. So we've gotten rid of this, and the reason behind it is this is only pertaining to hosted short-term rentals. So if it's an unhosted short-term rental, there's a whole special use permit process that goes through the planning board and everything else that would deal with occupancy and all of that stuff. Because we're really reducing this down just to a hosted short-term rental, we felt like 2 people per room kind of makes sense and keeps things pretty straightforward. I don't know if you have a house that has 10 bedrooms and the owner's living there and he uses 2 of the bedrooms, it doesn't really make sense to limit that to 8 people minus the family, and 2 people are going to rent out a 8-bedroom house with the owners there. So does anybody have any other idea on that? Is everybody fine with that?
No, but, yeah, but 2 people per bedroom isn't that the law? Isn't it 2 heartbeats per room?
What do you mean?
Like to have in 1 bedroom? I thought it was that you could only have 2 people in a bedroom.
We're not talking about that part of the law, though. We're talking about the town at one point was saying that it couldn't exceed 8 people total. Yeah, we were setting a maximum occupancy based off of
Oh, I
just,
see what you're saying.
I'm talking about the striped
Okay.
area.
Okay.
Yeah, and the next one down is a septic system on the property must meet all state and county with the supporting documentation. But then it says 15, the septic system must have a satisfactory inspection by a qualified septic disposal firm for initial application within the past 90 days. I guess we're done. It's so difficult. Okay. In the past 90 days, once a short-term rental permit is issued, the septic system must be pumped and inspected every 3 years. So basically, if you're applying for a permit, you have to have it inspected with a sign-off given in with your application saying it's been inspected, it's good, and then every 3 years from that point forward, if you keep going and renewing it, then you would require a pumping and inspection every 3 years. And somewhere in here, I don't think it's changed, but just a reminder to the max capacity, there is a reference in here to the septic system that, let's say we say every bedroom gets 2 people, and it's a 10-bedroom house. I'm just throwing an extreme example out there, but the septic system, when it was put in, was only good for 8 people. That would restrict it to the maximum capacity of only 8 people. It wouldn't be 20 people or whatever it is. So the law is written that way to be more restrictive. And 17, so this was talking about a sign, it was allowing a sign outside the sign law that we have. So we had just gotten rid of it, saying that if you're going to put a sign up, it should probably just follow the current sign law, that we shouldn't make a carve out, just allowing them to put up whatever sign they want. I didn't think anybody would have a problem with that, but especially if we're allowing these within residential areas, we don't want a bunch of random signs everywhere. For the purposes which include a swimming pool, there must be a water safety equipment which is defined as. So we put this as a placeholder. I think the attorneys need to come up with what water safety equipment is and fill that in before the next meeting. The pool, if you have a pool, it must meet all town codes. So you can just put a pool in and not have it fenced in and all that stuff, because I'm sure those are out there. And we got rid of the water alarm because I know people had said some stuff about it and it just seemed a little overdone. That's it with that. We got rid of number 1, which is forcing somebody to put an informational posting with their contact information in the house. The hope is now that this is only pertaining to hosted short-term rentals, there's no reason to put that. And also Airbnb, VRBO, as a previous person who ran those, it's not beneficial for the renter or the host to be having contact outside of those applications, because the host is protected and also the guest is protected because it's saved within the platform. So I don't know if as a town we want to be forcing people to have conversations over the phone. We added quiet hours. That's referenced somewhere else here. I'll show you that. We made a change to E. Some people talked during the public hearing about this. It shall be unlawful for a short-term rental to be used for any, and we got rid of a bunch of stuff, but it basically will read now, to be used for any gathering involving more people than the maximum occupancy of the rental. So our thought process was, do we really want the town trying to figure out if it falls under an assembly, included but not to a wedding, a party, what defines a wedding, what defines an activity. Can they not have a husband and wife and their 2 kids having an Easter egg hunt in the yard? I'm not really sure, so we just kind of simplified it and got rid of that and just said you can't have more than the maximum occupancy that the permit allows. It kind of makes it easier for the town to enforce, we think, too. We define the quiet hours a little differently, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. They were 11 to 7. We got rid of parties are prohibited, reference back up to the previous one. Recreational campfires must be attended at all times, and short-term rental owner must advise renters when burn bans are active. It just wasn't in there, but if you're coming randomly to a random place in New York and you're from Michigan, you're probably not going to know if there's a burn ban, and you'll be out there doing whatever, so. We changed this, that wasn't a big deal. Okay, this is a big one, I don't know what it is though. So this one required, when you got the permit, you were then required as a owner of the property to then notify all the adjacent owners with the permit information. If you're following the short-term rental permit and you're doing what you're supposed to, I didn't feel that it was right for us to force them to then go give them all this information. It could just stir more problems because maybe your neighbors would never even know, if you're a great host, that you're doing this and you're following all the rules. And even if you're doing everything right and you're doing it, they might just not like the idea of a short-term rental being next door, and it could lead to potential issues of just complaints to complain and use resources from the town and whatnot and cause issues. So does anybody have an issue with us not requiring them to send that out? No? Okay. The whole idea was to make this just more straightforward so people actually comply with it. This just changed it to 1 year. Let's see. See? You have good eyes. So this required, obviously there'll be a permit number that the town generates. It wanted us to require them to conspicuously put the permit numbers somewhere in their listing. The nice thing is once we pass this law, or reform of it, the county will reimburse us up to $5,000 for Granicus software that's designed for the zoning and the planning department to easily police all of this. So there's really no reason for us to have a permit number in there. The office will know that. It's just kind of one extra thing that we would be looking for, but it's kind of not really needed. But most of this is the same. It was 1 year revocation. If you didn't follow the rules, we moved it to 3 years. If you don't follow the rules, you can't have a permit for 3 more years at least. We made it a $1,000 fine, not to exceed 1,000 instead of 5. And we got rid of the imprisonment part of that. You'll just get a fine, unless the lawyers tell us we have to have that in there. But we thought if you put a heftier fine, maybe people will follow it. Go.
So this one, I was gonna push back on the strike through, but now I think I changed my mind. The signed affidavit, I liked it originally because it's just another piece of insurance to make sure that people, but I think the thought to get rid of that is because these are residents, they live here, right? So we are giving them the benefit of the doubt, assuming they're gonna follow the rules, right?
Yeah. And we're making the
Okay.
consequences a lot worse now too.
Yep. This affidavit was more for in the
Commercial.
unhosted world, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're almost to the end. I think that's it. So, does anybody have any crazy things that stick out that they disagree with or would like changed? If not, we'll send this to Emily to get. I don't think this aligns 100% with the New York State law, and I know Emily was working to make sure it all goes together. So if we give her this and we're all good with it, she'll fill in the blanks, she'll make sure whatever lines up with New York State, and I'll push her to hopefully have a copy for next meeting, if everybody's good with that. Everybody's good? Okay, and then we'll put it back out to the public for March 17th. Here are the comments. If we don't really have any dramatic changes, then we can pass it and move on. Okay, cool. That's all I have. Oh, no, that's not all I have. So, Sorry. So with all of this, some people might know or not know about something called an ADU. It's an accessory dwelling unit. So before being on the town board, I was on the planning board, and I got to walk through the process of an accessory dwelling unit and how crazy the process is for somebody. I'm not going to use names, but the situation is that there was an elderly couple who wanted to remain in their home because they could afford to remain in their home in our town while they lived out the rest of their life. They couldn't live by themselves anymore, so the family wanted to convert the garage into an accessory dwelling unit. Obviously, there's concerns of that's done to code and safety and a fire and all that stuff, and building code. But the process when I was part of it was kind of dragged out. I felt like it was kind of, obviously safety is important in making sure, but like it goes to the point right now that you have to have a public hearing, all your neighbors have to be notified. There was neighbors that came in and were complaining just for the fact they didn't like the idea of an aid and construction being on, and it was just a simple thing of these people could afford it and they wanted to remain in their home till the end. I don't even think it ever actually got built, and because it was just a long process before they passed away. But I believe, and don't quote me on this, the law limits it to a certain amount of permits for ADUs per year in the town. I would suggest if we're doing this, is that we are open to the idea of revisiting and revising how we handle ADUs as a town. I think we kind of have an old-fashioned mentality of how the law is written right now. We have a housing issue. There's a lot of kids growing up that can't afford their first house because houses are costing double than just 5 years ago. So wouldn't it be great if I could take my basement and properly get the permitting and put a little kitchenette and a bedroom and a bath, and my kids could live down there until with their significant other and all of that stuff. Well, we kind of have a cumbersome process right now. So I'm 100% behind this law and changing what I felt a month and a half ago and do a whole 180. But with that, I think we really need to be open to addressing that ADUs are easier and less, more accessible. I think if somebody has a barn and they want to put a nice livable space in the barn for their elderly mother or father, why would we hinder somebody from doing that? It's just bringing more people here. It's allowing people to stay in their homes or purchase their first home, and and it plays into the short-term rental, right? Because somebody could put an accessory dwelling unit in and put their basement on Airbnb if they do it legally. I don't think that's a problem, though, if it's regulated and they're there and they're monitoring it all. But I just wanted to throw that out because I'll probably have a suggestion at the next meeting.
I'm trying to become a little bit wiser in this job and think of all the things that I'll remember tomorrow that I wish I had said tonight. So this is one about this. Is there a reason why we wouldn't do this? And maybe we wouldn't do it across the board, but maybe we would do it for certain zoning districts. I don't think I mentioned this to you before. Why wouldn't we make primary residence part of it as a requirement?
Well, I think you're kind of doing that because it's owner occupied. So,
but are we assuming that? I'm just trying to think of like the corner case of like what we're assuming. Is there a reason why we wouldn't just say no? It has to be a primary residence just to eliminate any gray area. And if we don't like it across the board, maybe for certain clearly residential
I guess my
neighborhoods.
question would be: is primary residence as a town? How would we? And this was my argument 2 months ago, but clearly people persuaded me. Is that how would the town actually? It's an owner occupied, right? Somebody has to live there in order to rent out something in that place. But like a primary residence, are you saying like check their driver's license, or is it like?
I guess what I'm wondering, like, so we're saying it's a hosted, right? So the thought is if you see a rental go up in a residential area, but it's hosted, right? So we're saying that the person that owns it is there at the time. We're making an assumption there, but
somebody's there. Somebody's living there.
Somebody's living there.
Yeah.
What would hurt us to say it's a primary? Isn't adding a primary residence just an extra layer of? Somebody could lie. They could make something up. But
yeah, I'm fine with putting that in there.
stated that they were hosted and they weren't doing it.
Well, so that's
you
the
know what I
thing.
mean, in
There's a
that
part
aspect of
on the
doing
honor
that.
system here is
Correct.
that we're giving them the benefit of the doubt that they actually are
Or
there.
true hosted.
But I guarantee you, it's going to take one bad guest to ruin that for them, and they're going to lose their permit for 3 years. And will they risk that, or risk the fine of $1,000?
But wouldn't a primary residence is just like their tax rolls, right? That's not a hard thing, right?
It's
Or
not
no?
true.
Is
I
it
mean, like
harder?
the
Is it
how.
more vague?
It's difficult. I'll give you an example. Is my grandfather owns a house on Salt Point. He lives in Wilmington, North Carolina. If you look at the tax rolls, he owns the house, and he would be the primary residence. But he doesn't. Hasn't been to the house in 8
So
years.
it's, okay.
A lot of towns in their short-term rentals require it to be a primary residence. Rhinebeck does, I know that. But how do you determine what the primary residence is? In this day and age, some people have 2 or 3 residents. What's the primary residence? And then try
And I'm fine putting the language in there. It doesn't make a difference, I don't think, enforcing it. But if it makes one more person follow it and say that's
When I hear primary
Can't we
residence, I
tell
think
that
like,
through the assessor's office?
well, I just assume like
Because
where
of
they get their
the
mail.
the programs and all that?
Like that's what I'm thinking in terms of primary
I
residence.
mean, you want, the purpose is to prevent people from just speculating and buying homes.
We want them
They
living
only-
there.
Yeah.
That's the
you want
point.
them living there. So a lot of municipalities have that in their short-term rentals.
I will put that in the email to Emily to add something about primary residence.
Or some way to just, yeah.
Because it's not a big deal. Like, I think it's a good idea. We put it in there, yeah. Your microphone's not on, so nobody heard that.
Is that it? Any more comments? Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to resolutions. I'd like a motion for resolution number 208 of 2025, amending the Bower Park improvement budget.
So moved.
Second?
Hold on. I put the budget together and ran the project. Can somebody just explain to me what this is?
We just took it from the attorney expense line and put it into the capital outlay because we didn't have enough in the actual the capital outlay line.
Yeah, but what is that?
What do you mean?
What's a parks capital outlay? What are we paying
Why didn't we have
$10,000?
enough?
That was the Bower Park project.
I get that, but what is it?
It was for CPL. I mean, BTM.
It's the last
and
$10,000.
CPL. Yes.
Okay,
That was the last.
because
one
we were
was
way
all
under
paid.
budget, so
Yeah.
we're moving money around like, okay, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I would like a motion for 209 of 2025, authorizing payment of abstract number 12C of 2024.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like a motion for 210 of 2025, authorizing payment of abstract number 2 of 2025.
So moved.
Second?
And just so you know that amount under the general claims is the roll-off is in there. So I just wanted you to understand what that was. All in favor?
Aye.
And I would like a motion for 211 of 2025, appointment of Town of Pleasant Valley basketball referees for the 2024-25 season.
Are these new refs?
Michael Manow and Jermaine Wiggins, yes.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'd like a motion for 212, of 2025, awarding the bid for the test wells.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'd like a motion for 2013 of 2025, authorizing payment of abstract 2P of 2025.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'd like a motion for 214 of 2025, appointment of 2025 Town of Pleasant Valley Recreation Assistant.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And now this was added, it's on yours, right? Okay. I'd like a
Should we
motion.
clarify what that is? Because we had questions as a board in terms of the assistant.
These assistants are used for certain nights that
Yeah.
Nikki needs help with, such as movie nights, Easter egg hunts.
Yeah, and it's not that we're hiring someone, it's just that
Oh,
we're
no, no,
building
no,
a
it's
bench
not-
of people to
yeah,
be able
no,
to
no,
hire at
no,
that rate.
no.
Basically, what we're approving is
This
the
is
rate that we
just
pay them at.
for on-demand
Yeah, yeah,
type
yeah.
of situation.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I'd like a motion for 2015 to 2025, waiving a 30-day notice period for liquor license application for Mr. P's Roadhouse.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'd go on to the public comment. I'd like a motion to open the public comment portion of the meeting for new agenda items, non-agenda items, one time only, 3 minutes a person.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
First, I would just like to commend the board on the work that they're doing out at the new town hall. And maybe it's me, but did we actually go to bond? We must have gone to bond already, otherwise all that work couldn't have been done.
Yeah, so do you care if I answer?
No, go ahead.
So, there's already been a resolution that authorizes us to start that process. There will most likely be a special town board meeting, if not the next town board meeting, where we continue that process.
So we have not gone to bond then?
We don't have bonds right now. There's no need to
Okay.
take out bonds right now.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I know, we're
Yeah.
about 4.5, okay. All right,
At
thank
some
you.
point, we will, though.
Yeah, I just hope the rates come back down. All right, thank you.
First question is new teaming. Could anybody know what's going on at Camp New Teaming? Because I've heard that it's been abandoned by the soccer club that had a lease.
No, that's actually not true. There are things happening with Camp No Teaming that I just can't talk about right now. We haven't heard what's really going on and what their answer is. But the soccer thing is still going on. There is still a soccer league up there.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I think we have a young lady in the audience tonight that might be doing a high school participation in government. Do you have anything that you would like to add?
She's like,
I wasn't really trying to put you on the spot, but, you know, knowing your mom makes it very easy for me.
Run
to-
fast.
Do you have any questions for us? Okay. Did you get something out of it tonight? Okay, that's good. It's great to see you here, honey.
So, normally this is when I would get up over there, but the one thing that I did learn this weekend was like kind of ask, when you don't know, ask things and that. So, I know a couple things that people have been asking me, like, I think Valentine's Day was this past weekend, and we still have Christmas decorations up and stuff like that, and I know it looks nice in Salt Point, it's green and stuff still, but, it's getting St. Patty's Day.
Okay, so I'm really glad you brought that up because honestly, I forgot to put that down for
Okay.
you tonight.
Good.
We have a young man who is amazing that works for a local company that does all of this for free.
Okay.
And every time this guy has set it up to take those down, it has snowed, or the wind was 45 miles an hour, or it was raining, and the poor guy has not gotten to it. He's actually supposed to be doing it Friday morning.
Okay. No.
So just pray that there's no rain, no ice, and no wind.
It's
So
gonna
that's
actually be
why,
above.
yeah,
And they
and,
have
and
to-
you know what, he does the hometown heroes banners for nothing, he does this for nothing. So we are really fortunate as a town, but I'm glad you brought it up because I saw it online and there were some really nasty
Yes.
comments.
Yes.
So I'm looking at the camera because this goes for everybody who decided to write some really ridiculous, nasty comments about this. It is getting taken down and it's really not that big a deal.
So now, with that stated, now another thing is, I was talking to Dan the other day. I was or 2 storms ago, I'm at 44 and North Avenue, and I looked across, whoever does the maintenance there, for the public house and that, they did a beautiful job. Sidewalk's done, it's spotless, they're throwing out salt. As I'm sitting there and the guy's at the far end, here comes the state up with the snowplow and then totally covers everything the guy just did. And I just drove through, before I came to the meeting, and started up past Albrecht Farm and worked my way here. And the county doesn't do the bridge, so that looks like crap right now. You can't walk on it and stuff. And then like the parking, in front of McRitchie's place there, there's so much snow from the guys that did what they're supposed to. You can't even park legally if you had a nice sized vehicle on. And we used to back in the day when I plowed snow down through here, the town would come through, scoop it up, and then when it got all hard right now, it's like gonna be there for a couple days. So I was just wondering, like if something, we used to, with Daily, they come in with the trucks at night and just try to clean the streets up for that, but like, I was wondering if we could just do ourselves maintenance of the sidewalks with the town itself.
Well, first of all, we're not supposed to do the private sidewalks in front of these places. They're supposed, that by law, they are required to do it, I think, within a 48-hour time period.
So are we
And if
enforcing
they're
that
not-
when they don't?
Oh, no, well, we've already had to fine people, and our guys have had to go out and do the bank up here. They have to do some stuff down this way.
Well, that's-
It's been a disaster.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but if we took it
we also
over-
have a machine that hasn't been used, but now we have a new maintenance man.
Correct, that's why I
Okay.
was wondering if we could
This
just,
is the greatest thing ever for me. So hopefully, he will be able to get that machine here and be able to use it for next year. We're hoping that we don't have to worry
right,
about it
that's what I'm just
anymore.
saying, I mean,
Yeah.
just
We have a
because-
machine that can go right along the sidewalk, but the 2 young gentlemen that we have right now didn't even know how to use it.
right, well, I'm just saying,
And it's
like,
kind of complicated.
with the fining would be prime example then, are we sending something out to the state? Since they're not doing the bridge and that, because that wouldn't be ours, right?
Yes, the sidewalk on the bridge is our problem.
It's our problem.
So
Okay,
every
'cause-
time they would come through and put it on, the ice kept building up.
Correct, because that's what
So
it is right now.
Our guys went out there today again
Yeah,
to
I
try
mean,
to
'cause
put
it's-
stuff on it, to try to get it to melt off in the sun. So he's been coming in at 7 o'clock to do that early in the morning before the traffic gets bad, so he doesn't get hit by somebody.
Have you spoken to the highway superintendent? Because maybe you could talk to him and suggest that while they're going through, maybe they can drop their plow and push the snow off the bridge.
Yeah, no, that,
See,
Definitely.
maybe
Yeah, no,
maybe
no,
it's a simple
yeah.
fix. Instead
Yeah.
of the guys shoveling it, maybe they could
right, to
just,
give it.
I don't
give
know
them
if
a
they
hand.
legally can, but I'm sure he'll be able to tell you.
Right. And then the other thing I was just wondering is, I remember I was looking through my own notes there a while back, the Butch Gardner sign up at Helen Aldridge.
Mary Beth and I are working on that right now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. That's all. I just used the other side.
Okay, I would like to have a motion to close the public comment portion of the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
And I'd like to motion to go into executive session for attorney-client and for 105.1F personnel.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you, young. Like a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like a motion
And
to
just really
adjourn-
quick,
Oh,
just
sorry.
on the record, we didn't take any action.
Oh, no action was taken, and I would like a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.